Hey everyone. I got invited to the Killing Floor 3 playtest, and I recorded and played about 2 or so hours of gameplay and wanted to give my thoughts. Um, First of all, I am ignoring the fact that they're trying to like NDA the footage of the game, which is absolutely insane. Because it comes out in less than 10 days. I'm totally ignoring that. I didn't even realize that was like a pop-up, because it just shows up as like one of those like accept windows when you start the game. And after the game crashed, I looked at it and read it, and I noticed it was like a full NDA, um, blocking me from sharing or recording any footage of the game for like several years or something. So totally ridiculous. Anyway, so this is supposed to be a stress test. And this says that this is a beta build up in the top right, and it says that the product is not final. But I really kind of doubt that. I really doubt that there's like some substantially different build that they have, that's going to fix all the problems that I'm going to talk about. I've really never seen a game company do that. And especially when you've got like these types of stress tests or beta tests this close to release, like you are just not going to be having like a substantially different build. You are going to be using the stress test information and building off of that. And yeah, I guess this is supposed to be entirely for the servers, but they're also going to be collecting a lot of other information. And again, like I said, no other game I have ever seen has come out with like a different substantially different version of itself. So that's the perspective I'm going in with, that this is pretty much going to be the final version of the game. I'm sure there'll be like a day one patch or something else like that, but that's the perspective I'm going with, and I'm fairly confident that I'll be correct. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that quickly. The rest of this review is going to be kind of stream of conscious. I have notes to go over as I talk about it, kind of over the gameplay, and I'll edit in some specific sections for stuff I am talking about. And for some background, I've been playing Killing Floor for a very long time. I first played Killing Floor 1 way back when I was a kid. I actually had to pirate it first because I didn't have any money, and then I eventually went on to go buy the full Steam game version. And I have about 250 hours in Killing Floor 1, and then about 250 hours in Killing Floor 2, about the same, but probably more in Killing Floor 1 if you consider the pirated copy. But I've been playing the series for a long time. I haven't been um, like super into it recently, but I've got a decent amount of hours, and I'm not like a super crazy veteran. I haven't like got thousands of hours, but I do have a decent amount of time in, and I feel somewhat qualified to speak about the changes in Killing Floor 3 and give my thoughts on them as someone who's played the series for a long time. Okay, so first off, positives. I guess I'm going to start with the more controversial stuff first, but I really don't mind the dash. Um, I think it kind of has a place, and I think it's like somewhat of a natural evolution in giving players more abilities to sort of fight with Zeds. You can still like be rewarded for good placement and knowing a husk is going to shoot at you by listening to audio cues, but um, having the ability to like dash out of the way just like as a short quick avoidance thing, especially when you're like being attacked by a Scrake or something else like that, is pretty useful. And I didn't think it like it wasn't overpowered. Like the dash is not crazy far. It's like just enough to get out of like one attack. So if you are poorly positioned or you are like in a really bad spot, the dash is not going to save you. And I think that's, you know, partly some of the concerns that others have is like the dash is going to make the game a lot easier. Um, so I just want to say, in my experience, I didn't think that was the case. I actually kind of liked it. Um, you could maybe make it a perk like just for berserkers or have it like a weapon specific thing, maybe for the knife. But overall, I didn't really mind it. So um, that's something I wanted to mention first. Um, the other controversial thing is the slide. I didn't mind the slide either. It's not like super useful for getting out of the way of Zeds. Like you don't really use it when you're in the middle of combat, except if you're like maybe running away from like a super big Zed or a husk exploding or something like that. But it is extremely jank, and I'll talk more about that. But implicitly, like on its own, I don't mind it. I didn't think it was that bad. Um, it definitely just does need some work, which I'll talk about later, but I also didn't mind it. The other thing is the music was good. The menu music is great. And then a bunch of the other tracks that were playing during the game wasn't bad either. Unfortunately, it does seem like they recycled some music. Like I heard some Killing Floor 2 tracks, and that's not a bad thing, but like this is really an opportunity to have like better music or like having like more, maybe like a remix or something, but like what I was hearing was almost the exact same track. And I'm very familiar with all of them with the time in Killing Floor 2, and because I listen to them, when I'm at the gym, I'm a big fan of like metal and all that. Um, so it really like struck out to me as being the same track. I know the music isn't supposed to be like an absolute focus of the game, but it is a unique aspect of Killing Floor, and I think that it's a shame to have like reset music. But anyway, this is supposed to be about the positives, so I'll just say that the music that was new was good, and I did enjoy it. Um, and one other thing is there is some pretty good animations in there. Um, I think it's hampered by the janky movement, but and I'll put it up on the screen. But one of the guns for the commando has like these cool um, pulsing tubes, and when you were shooting it in Z time, as you can see from the clip, you can see all the tubes moving. The sight is like kind of shaking. The barrel is shaking. So they did definitely put some work into the animations, but they're kind of hard to tell. But that was just something that struck out to me. It surprised me. Killing Floor 2's animations are kind of crazy, um, so it's kind of a hard act to follow. But I will say that there was some stuff in there that kind of stuck out to me, and I was like, oh, that's nice. I presume that is the case with the other weapons. I wasn't able to test all of them, but I did just wanted to mention that as a positive. Um, One other thing positive is the blood. The gore is. I had to play, unfortunately, on low settings, which is a negative we'll have to get into. But and I'll put the clip up in one of the final matches when I was playing against the Crawler Queen. She got covered in blood. There was blood all over the floors and the walls and everything, and it just kind of fits the Killing Floor like chaos. And I was happy to see that sort of kind of expanded upon. You'll also obviously get blood on your weapons, and that'll progress, or that'll stick around. It'll persist across like walls and floors and stuff like that. I was on low settings, so I didn't really get to see too much other details. But I thought that was, something good that they are kind of working on expanding. Um, One other thing, and we're gonna go talk a little bit more into like the gameplay side. Another really cool addition is the different wave types. During To give a couple more examples of like some of the jank that kind of shows up, um, I was trying to use a couple of the charged heavy like knife attacks on crawlers, and they just did not hit. I don't think I was able to hit a single crawler with the charged knife attack. It just felt like the animation carried the knife over the Zed's head, even though that shouldn't have been the case. So that's like just a jank feeling. There are some other weird animations, like I saw one where the bloat is like climbing up a wall, and it looks like that like model just like stretched rather unnaturally, and it's like looked really weird. So it feels like they didn't have a specific animation for the bloat climbing. Then they used a different one, and then it looks janky with the model because it's obviously like the bloat is a very unique model, so you can see it stretch. There are some like weird model snaps where, and I'll put the clip up where you can see this clot. He just kind of snaps right into his new like little dodge animation, which is weird looking. There's no transition there. There are like the couple times when I was playing as the berserker, you slice a Zed and it'll be like a completely bizarre like cut. Like I'll cut um, like vertically, and then the Z will be broken horizontally, and he'll be like crawling on the ground, like, okay, I did not cut that way. So it just feels jank, like that just shouldn't be happening. If I'm going side to side and I cut like, you know, horizontally, it would make sense for him to become like the crawling corpse, but it just didn't happen, and that happened a lot, where there were just inconsistent like model animation cuts. And maybe that's lag, maybe it's like because I was on low settings. Regardless, it still shouldn't have been happening. Another thing to mention is the weapons. When you are in the trader or like just looking at them from the home menu, it's probably the easiest way to get what I'm saying, and I'll throw a clip up on screen. They all look so generic. Like they all just kind of look like weapon blobs. Like they have like larger sections and like some details, but none of them are immediately identifiable of what they are. Like I had to actually like figure out that the engineer is now like the support class basically. And none of the weapons that I, was looking at in the trader, none of them stuck out to me as like, oh, this is a shotgun. Um, Not a single one. I actually had to like look at the weapon description, um, was identifiable as a shotgun, and that's a problem. Like, if you're going to take the game in a in a different sense, where you want to have like a futuristic atmosphere and setup and all this different stuff, you have to make the weapons look unique. You have to make the weapons look cool. And tons of different games have done that before, but this game is just not doing it. They all just kind of look like blobs. They're not identifiable. Like you can tell like, yeah, it's a rifle, and you can tell the flamethrower is a flamethrower, but like those are the only two things. Um, and I think that just kind of harms the impact where you've got these guns that just kind of all look the same. Funny enough, the most immediately identifiable gun was just the MP5 that the medic has. His other guns, I could tell the one was like kind of based off like an Uzi or something like that, but um, especially for the support, all the guns have like the same like atmosphere and like look to them. So that's just another thing to mention is I do not think that they went in the right direction with the futuristic setting. Kind of just can end up using the same guns over and over, and there can be some variety issues. So that adds some replayability that I didn't really mind. The other customization aspect is the ability to have a lot of different perks. Like in Killing Floor 2, you basically have different tiers and a couple of different options to choose between them. In 3, there's 3 different tiers with 3 different options between them, and I thought that was great. Like that adds a lot of different replayability, like I said, fixing one of the somewhat problems of Killing Floor. Um, so I think that's a great addition to have all this different variety in the perks. I'm not going to speak too much about their balance because that's something that's easy to change and toggle. But when I was looking at them, the majority of the abilities were in line. I spent most of my time with Commando, so I thought the majority of them worked and were pretty cool. They fit. Um, they're all in line with the commander's ability to, handle large waves of Zeds. There are a few of them that were kind of like out, but overall they were pretty good. And I thought that was like a great addition. It's kind of expanding upon what already works. So I was happy to see that. It does. One other quick positive to mention in regards to the customization um, for the perks is that Killing Floor 2, the majority of the perks, like for example, I'm reading off the wiki right now, for the support, like they have perks like increase maximum capacity of weapons by 75% or increase reload speed. Then there's another increase damage, and then you can decrease the shot spread. So they're all like generally just buffs. They're not much. The only decision you really have to make when picking a perk is, would you rather have more reload speed or more damage? It's pretty simple decisions. But 3 has a lot of like interesting new ideas. Like for example, one of them for the commando is if you know use a syringe, you'll get a movement speed buff and a damage buff. There's also another commando perk where if you shoot limbs, you will increase your weapon damage by 5%. The other perk for like the ninja, for example, has it where if you perform a perfect parry, you will stumble Zeds in front of you. And those are really cool. Like those have much more direct impact on the gameplay, and your perk builds and setups are way more interactive than, okay, now my shotgun does 30% extra damage. You can have a build that's like, okay, my focus is on speed. I want to buy a bunch of syringes, and then maybe use one if I'm hurt a little bit, get out of the way of a wave of Zeds, and then take advantage of it. Maybe proc Zed time or something like that. Or you could have your ninja. I'm not going to call him a ninja. I'm going to say he's berserker. You can have your berserker build, be focused on speed or parrying, and they're way more interactive perks. So that's another positive to mention. I don't really think there's too much to complain about there. Bear mentioning, and I wanted to say it as a good positive here. There's not really much to complain about in that aspect. Another going kind of more into the Zed side. The Zeds themselves are also like not too poorly designed. I didn't mind some of them. I feel like they're going for this like Doom 2016 vibe with them, where they've got all these like somewhat cybernetic parts, but they're just not hitting the mark with some of them. Some of them look like just goofy. Like the Clot has like these weird glasses on, but others, like the cyst, is freaky looking, and that fits the horror vibe that I think that they were going for. Um, but the siren, I think, kind of hits it the best. She looks incredibly disturbing, and I think that's probably the best example I can think of as like being that sort of doom horror look. Um, so some of them are not that bad. I'll talk about the ones that are bad, and there are quite a few of them, but that's the general vibe I think that they were going for, and some of them do actually hit the mark. Another quick positive to mention is that I kind of like the home area. It's a bit different for Killing Floor, but like obnoxious characters and stupid voice lines aside, I kind of like the idea of having like all your buddies in the lobby together, and then you start a mission and everybody heads off to the helicopter. That is cool. That's fun in Deep Rock Galactic for a reason, and it's like I doubt it would be like terribly game breaking for people in this game. So I think that's another good positive. Everybody has mentioned that when you walk out, it is unfortunately like you do get slapped with the battle pass and the store like right there, but they are just kind of like off to the side now. I didn't play like the alpha or beta version that this was much more obnoxious on, so it wasn't too bad. Um, but it is, it's almost exactly like Deep Rock Galactic. Like it has the same thing where there's like your home areas that everybody comes out of, and then like you've got your mission control center, and then like some areas for you to kind of dick around with your friends. It's like the exact same thing. So besides the battle pass being like right there, I don't think there's too much to complain about, and I don't think it's like a bad addition. It would probably be pretty fun. So that's another positive. Before I get into the negatives, I'm just going to briefly show a few good clips of me playing where I think the game was actually putting its best foot forward and I was having a bit of fun. These aren't going to be like super long sections, but I just want to highlight like where the game can work.
Fresh from the whetstone, matey. Ha ha ha. You feel that? Precision forged, ultra sharp. Stand still while I give you the old shell. Looks like bloody dreadful. That'll be a bit of work for the plasterers.
So my first most biggest criticism is that the game is overall very, very jank. It has jank movement, like the slide, jank animations. Like I said, the slide has like this weird thing where the you slide and then you'll jump and you kind of have like a weird animation going out of it. Um, Climbing movement is really stiff. It does this really annoying thing where if you try and mantle over something, your like camera will lock in the direction that you are looking, and that can really throw you off because you have to look back in the other direction, like once you hop it, and that's just not necessary. Let us look around when you're mantling something. There's no reason to not have that in. Um, it does have really jank enemy spawning. I'll put some clips up, but there were times where enemies like uh, were spawning on top of each other, like, but they were crawling out of a vent. So what happened was there would be like a Zed finishing their animation of crawling out of like a grate or something, and then the game would spawn another Zed behind that. But the first one hadn't completed its animation, so it would just put it on top of the other one. So you have like this thing where they're just like popping in out of thin air. And this wasn't just like one occurrence. I observed it like 3 or 4 times, and even with like seemingly like crawlers, like disappearing and like reappearing. It doesn't seem like there's a very detailed animation for when they climb around a wall. So it looks like they're just appearing on the wall rather than like climbing around it, which is really weird looking. Um, and so that's just like jank. I don't know why. The spawning was like fine in Killing Floor 2. I don't know how it was messed up for this.
Looks like you're low on grenades,
The other
Specialist.
thing is really poor performance. Do not have a bad rig. I'll put my specs up on the screen, but I had to play this game on like all of the very low settings to even get a decent frame rate around like 90, and even then it would be dropping sometimes for like no real reason. Like there wasn't that much stuff happening on the screen, but it would still be dropping like considerably. I don't know why the reason for that is. Killing Floor 2 runs perfectly. I never had any issues like running that game. And this one has like about the same amount of detail as Killing Floor 2. Like they didn't, as far as I can tell, there's nothing like earth-shatteringly new or different about it. This isn't like hyper realistic or super gritty. It has like that same sort of model look and detail as Killing Floor 2. So the performance should be about the same or on par. And even then, there's still no excuse for this type of unoptimization. So kind of along that vein, also. The servers, like there was a lot of lag. Like there were times where I would shoot an enemy and it would take a second for it to hit. And this just like shouldn't be happening. I know it's supposed to be a stress test and maybe it'll get fixed, but I doubt it. But that's just like some stuff to mention. Like combined with the jank movement, your interactions with the Zeds being strange, um, the animations being funky, and the lag, it just makes for a really bad experience. It's just strange how bad all of these things kind of like coalesce into this underlying gameplay feeling. Like we can talk about other stuff like voice lines, character designs, Z designs, but if you don't nail that feeling of like the animations and the gameplay and all of that stuff feeling smooth, um, this game just will not work. And that is super important for games like Killing Floor, where the loop, the gameplay loop, is the best part of the game. I know people love perks and like all that stuff, and that's like also like a part of it, but it's not the main way that you interact with the game. Really, you're really shooting and interacting with Zeds. Like you may be setting them on fire or like stabbing them, but um, all of that stuff needs to work well before you can go into any of the other stuff. And unfortunately, that has to be my biggest criticism, is that all of the animations, all of the movement, the underlying systems of the game itself just don't seem to work well, um, and that is a big problem. Another thing to mention is the weapons. When you are in the trader or like just looking at them from the home menu, it's probably the easiest way to get what I'm saying, and I'll throw a clip up on screen. they all look so generic. Like they all just kind of look like weapon blobs. Like they have like larger sections and like some details, but none of them are immediately identifiable of what they are. Like I had to actually like figure out that the engineer is now like the support class basically. And none of the weapons that I, was looking at in the trader, none of them stuck out to me as like, oh, this is a shotgun. Um, Not a single one. I actually had to like look at the weapon description. Um, was identifiable as a shotgun, and that's a problem. Like if you're going to take the game in a future if in a different sense where you want to have like a futuristic atmosphere and setup and all this different stuff, you have to make the weapons look unique. You have to make the weapons look cool. And tons of different games have done that before, but this game is just not doing it. They all just kind of look like blobs. They're not identifiable. Like you can tell like, yeah, it's a rifle, and you can tell the flamethrower is a flamethrower, but like those are the only two things. Um, and I think that just kind of harms the impact where you've got these guns that just kind of all look the same. Funny enough, the most immediately identifiable gun was just the MP5 that the medic has. His other guns, I could tell the one was like kind of based off like an Uzi or something like that, but um, especially for the support, all the guns have like the same like atmosphere and like look to them. So that's just another thing to mention is I do not think that they went in the right direction with the futuristic setting. The next thing I want to talk about is the crafting. Um, I'm really like not a big fan of it, like being so present. Like you'll be shooting Zeds and then you'll have a thing like, oh, you got some scrap metal, and it'll show up on the game on the right hand side like you're playing like Destiny or something, and it's just is so strange to see. I don't feel like it belongs. If you're gonna have like that sort of system, at least like hide that from the players so they can see what they're getting at the end, or have an option to hide it so that people can focus. I just it's just really taking me out to like see like a stock PNG of like a steel bar as like a crafting material obtained. Like it just does not fit the feel of Killing Floor. And that's kind of like an underlying through line is that they have all these different ideas for stuff that they want to do and ways to change the game, but they feel like they've just been added without much thought of the larger Killing Floor like experience and kind of what previous games have been and like what they would want to evolve. So they just kind of said, okay, we want more replayability. We want the ability to have players have more varied like experiences. Okay, what did we do? All right, well, the first guy had an idea like let's have different waves, and that's a great idea. That's right in line with Killing Floor. It adds variety. There's like different types of like buffs and debuffs you could give to Zeds or players, make them more challenging, make it easier, whatever. But that's in line. The main way of dealing with, playing the games, it's a wave-based co-op shooter. So that fits in adding variety to your wave-based co-op shooter. Adding crafting materials does really nothing because, okay, now I'm going to spend time in the menu crafting my weapon and putting a red dot on it. Like, that's fine in theory, but just have, like, some sort of system where players can customize their guns. Like, why have it locked behind, like, all this type of, like, um, sort of artificial like randomness. People are going to be trying to kill like different types of Zeds. They're going to be trying to kill like or stab like different objects in the game. Like you can stab a or shoot a computer screen or something like that. You'll get like scrap metal. Um, it's just doesn't fit. Like why are you thinking about getting scrap metal collectible materials like you're playing Destiny 2 in Killing Floor? It just doesn't fit. Um, I'm not saying that this could be implemented in a way where it does apply, and like I said, my suggestion would be to lock it behind like customization where you unlock different things as you progress your perks, rather than having to like craft them off this random system. That would be more in line, so that players can be aware and like pre-plan ahead of time. They can still obviously do that, but they're going to be like thinking, okay, I have to kill like a bunch of bloats or a bunch of flesh pounds this game, and they're not going to be really thinking about like their, you know, survival or like the team. It just takes away from the co-op experience. So that's like kind of my larger criticism. The other obviously implicit aspect of this like rarity and crafting system is that it's more of a way for them to sell you stuff. There's obviously going to be a thing where people are going to buy a pack, or there'll be a pack in the store where you can buy like a red dot or something else like that. And like I know Killing Floor has had DLC in the past, but that's all been cosmetic. So these are actually having direct impacts on you. Like the red dot gives you like an extra 4% accuracy. So these are having direct impacts on gameplay. So any step away from that, from having cosmetics be the only way for microtransactions, I just think is not great. It's just not a good look, and it harms, I think, the satisfaction of players because if you have something that you really want to do or like make or build and it's locked behind a paywall, that's frustrating. You're already going to be paying a decent amount of money for the game. And if you buy the battle pass, that's like even more. So I just think it's like a frustrating addition. So it should be like more, not necessarily locked down, but like perhaps the options for you to customize should be locked behind how you progress like your perk. So like for the commando, maybe you'll unlock red dots, and then you have red dots available for, the rest of your class. So, if you decide that you want to level up Berserker first, you'd have the ability to have like a knife that does poison damage, et cetera, et cetera. So you'd be able to kind of level across accounts. That's a good way to have like replayability and have like your different progressions affect different like sides of the game. But that's just not implemented here. So it's just kind of a scatterbrained approach. Kind of in line with the crafting thing is that there are now different rarities for weapons in the trader. I don't even really know what that means because players are just going to make their custom guns anyway and try and buy those off the trader, rather than use whatever different variety or rarity weapons the trader has. So that just seems really strange. Also, it's poorly implemented. The only way to differentiate besides the weapons when you're looking at the trader, um, all of the images look the same. Like all the different rarities for the different weapons look the same. Um, there's no like, okay, this one has a red dot, and I see it has a red dot on the image. There's no like, this gun has like a larger, magazine or something. Okay, this one's geared towards fire. It's like got flames on it. It just has a different background. So it just seems super tacked on. Like if you wanted to have different versions of the guns, like just have that as an option to like, okay, I want to, you know, add a red dot to my scar. Like that's not a bad idea. Why have it as like split up as like different rarities? It's just strange. So this will be the section about stuff that people have already complained in depth about. So I'm not going to go too far about into it. Um, the syringes being like a bill like an item that gets used up is really ridiculous. There's no reason for that change. It just like punishes you for really no reason. I know you're supposed to be like managing resources, but like that's not really been a Killing Floor thing besides like managing your ammo maybe. And even that, there are like random ammo pickups that have always been like a staple of the game for you to pick up if you are running out of ammo. So having like syringes be an item that you can run out of just ends up hurting players, and it'll be frustrating because players just flat out won't be able to heal on harder waves. So there won't be any like kiting or like really close calls where someone's able to fight off the last like flesh pound or something with the rest of the wave gone because, or like all of their teammates are gone because he'll be out of syringes. He just won't be able to heal. And I think that's just like it doesn't make any sense as a change. Just make it so that syringes are infinite and on a cooldown. Like that's just been the deal with Killing Floor forever. There's no reason for this change. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, on the subject of the executions, I'm going to just show you this clip and you will see how absurd they are. There is absolutely no reason for a 150-pound woman to be able to rip and like basically twist the head off a frickin' flesh pound. Like that is just absurd. Like I know the game is already somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but to go that far into the like action side where you're just somewhat like beating up on Zeds just like feels silly. Like the Zeds are supposed to be somewhat scary. They're supposed to be intimidating. They're supposed to be a force that you respect and have to play around. Having it where you're like executing them is just strange. Like you are not Doom Guy here. Like you are not playing as like a fantasy character. You are a normal person in this world. And yeah, you are stretching, disbelief for a little bit, obviously, for the whole situation. But to have it go that far in that direction, I just really don't like. Like you could have maybe had it as like a cool animation for the Berserker, um, as like a perk based thing, but to have it for like all the characters on like especially enemies like flesh pounds, it just took me right out of it. And when it happened, I was just really taken aback, and it took me a second to like see what was happening. I knew that they were already in the game, but to have them like just happen like that randomly, where you see like a flesh pound on its knees in front of like a small woman, is just like rather absurd. The other thing, obviously, to talk about is the microtransactions. Obviously, people have already talked about the battle pass in depth. I still don't really think it belongs. I think having like a normal system of monetization where it's like, hey guys, here's some DLC with a bunch of new guns and maybe a new perk or something cool. Having a battle pass is just kind of unnecessary. I know cosmetics are like one of the, you know, more normal ways, easier ways for people to get money. But if you're not going to make this free to play and you're going to charge $40, adding a microtransaction thing and um, having the store like fully populated like that is just like unnecessary. Like I really don't think every game should be Call of Duty with the amount of transactions and stuff. The focus should be on like the replayability and then having, other DLC packs. I think that worked for Killing Floor 1, and then it was kind of left somewhat behind in Killing Floor 2, where they had like this system where you had boxes. I guess that was back during the like Overwatch 1 loot box craze. So I guess battle passes are an upgrade on that, but I still feel and am concerned that in the future it'll result in less content for people who, you know, just don't have the time to level up a battle pass. Like every game has this thing where they all have a battle pass and they're all vying for your attention. And Killing Floor 3 is not doing a good enough job to set itself apart to have like a system where that is warranted or necessary. Um, it just doesn't fit. So that was my comment on that. I'm concerned about it. I'm not like overly worried about it. I don't think it's going to be the death of the game, but there are definitely better ways to implement it. Um, yeah. I wanted to quick talk about missed opportunities. So one of the biggest missed opportunities that I think this game had a really good, you know, spot to be in to try and fix that was to add some more of the horror and grit atmosphere back that was present in the first game. Um, for example, like I don't know, like many people have just played Killing Floor 2 and haven't played Killing Floor 1, but Zeds talk. Like they will speak and they will say stuff to you in Killing Floor 1, and it's creepy. It's unsettling when the bloat is talking to you or the Scrake is mumbling something. Killing Floor 2 had elements of it, but nowhere near the degree of Killing Floor 1. And in Killing Floor 3, they're all just kind of mindless monsters. They're not speaking to you. They're not saying anything. And that is a big missed opportunity for me. I think that having the Zeds be, talkative and actually like speaking back, um, expanding upon that like creepy atmosphere that was in the first game, is a really big missed opportunity, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. This is more of a balance thing, but I mentioned earlier that I don't implicitly mind the idea of the character or like perk abilities, but some of them are really, really poorly balanced. I'll put the clip up, but I'm playing as the Berserker, and I have 3 charges of the grapple hook ability. It not only just immediately teleports me to the that I hit it with, but it'll stun them, and it'll stun them for a long time. So in this clip, you can see I'm just like beating up on this Scrake, and it can't do anything because I am just stunning it continuously. As soon as the animation finishes, I stun it again. And I know this is balanced, but like I don't feel like I should be able to stun a Scrake really for that long. Like, if you want to have it so that you get in and like have them stumble, but to have them be stunned and like have all this electricity around seems like it's just a bit cheesy. It doesn't like make the Zeds seem like a threat. And that was, I guess, something I had kind of been feeling and wanted to comment on if I'm, going to be going into balance here. Is that the Zeds simultaneously like felt jank, but also weak. Like you kind of easily like cleave through them. And I know I mentioned earlier that sometimes in Killing Floor 2, when you're using the knife or something like that, I can feel like you're just kind of mildly annoying them. And there's definitely, like I said, a balance to strike here, but this is just way too much on the other side where you just cleave through Zeds like there's nothing to them. They don't do enough damage to you, all this other stuff. And I don't know if again, I only played on normal. It could be the difficulty thing, but at least for the character abilities, that needs to be changed where it just does not fit the feeling of the game to have it where the Zeds are like something that you can just cheese like this. In Killing Floor 1, like if you had as like a Scrake walking you down or something like that, and even Killing Floor 2, like you had to think about how you're going to handle it. Like, are you going to shoot him in the leg and try and stumble him? Are you going to try and use like you always had like one melee bash to like get them to back off. So it was like managing these different things. Now you just kind of press Q and you teleport to them, and then they get stunned, and then you stab them, and then you do it again, and then they get stunned again, and then you stab them. And that's just not a very engaging loop. It doesn't require you to think. You're not managing anything. Um, and I just don't think that's the way that the game should be going. So, like I said, I think most of the abilities need to be handled at a like a balance sense, which just does not seem to be the case here. Again, I only played with the Berserker and the Commando, so that's my experience with those. But that was something I wanted to mention as a criticism or something that I think they need to address moving forward is finding some way to make the character abilities be both balanced but also like not cheesy and have them like where they are useful. So, for example, with the Berserker, and I noticed this, kind of looking at some of the perks, is the Berserker's character ability has some perks where they reward you for going through multiple Zeds. Like if you line up some Zeds and then teleport to something, or not teleport, but grapple to something, it's effectively a teleport. Um, so that is an idea where you could have it so the Berserker is supposed to handle larger Zeds. He's supposed to be fighting them one on one. So if you have it where you can reward the player for lining up some other Zeds, going straight to a target,
30 seconds.
and then starting to beef with, let's say it's a Scrake or a Flesh Pound. They shouldn't be stunned, like you shouldn't immediately go into damage on it, but that is one way to think of it as like, okay, this is going to clear up like some trash mobs on the way, and then I can focus on the Scrake. Like that would be more in line with the Berserker's abilities. Um, that's just an example. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but the voice lines for some of these characters are absolutely horrific. Worse than Far Cry. They just need to be removed or changed or something because they are unbearable.
Bye.
So, to wrap this up, I really can't recommend the game. In fact, I'd advise you to stay away from it. I do not want to support this type of development, and Tripwire needs to do better here, so I will advise you to take your money elsewhere. My experience with the playtest was buggy, janky, and disappointing. From the lag, the poor performance, the poor animations, the bad visual style, the missed opportunities, and very scatterbrained design, I don't think Killing Floor 3 is in a good place, and if they really want the game to do well and thrive, it's got to go back under, and it has to go under more development. I'm scared that this game will release, do poorly, as I expect it will, and then we will never get another Killing Floor game. I really hope that's not the case, and I do hope that they make the decision to put it back under and fix a lot of these issues, and then I think you'd have a great experience. I do think that hiding under all of this, there is a good game. Like, there is something here that is worthwhile of your money and would be a blast to play and would have a lot of replayability. Um, there are a lot of things that are fun. Like I said, I like the idea of the little chopper as like an area for you to hang out with your friends before going on a mission. Um, the new perks are really great. I like the direction that they took there. Um, the movement can and could feel great, but it's just too scatterbrained and has too many issues to really recommend. It is not in a good spot. Like I said before, if they want this game to do well and thrive, I really think it's got to go back under the knife, and get some more work put into it.